Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode of On the Neutral Ground.
And check us out on all social media platforms at On the NG Show. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. So, welcome to episode 3 of On the Neutral Ground. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for making it out here today. I think we're going to talk a little bit today with, we're going to talk about associations today in Louisiana. Film associations, resources, and what those associations actually do here in the state.
Yeah, and so we have two very special guests today. We have Trey Burvant. He's a producer and an actor, and also he's the president of LFEA. LFEA, by the way, is Louisiana Film and Entertainment Association. Is that correct? Welcome, Trey. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you start? And you were in Get Out, and
Take it way back.
It's pretty cool.
That's always the thing, yeah. Oh, I was the cop in Get Out.
Yeah.
You look a little different now.
It's my 15 minutes, yeah. Got
so
hair
tell us
now.
a little bit about yourself.
Well, the quick version is graduated high school, Covington, Louisiana, shot out to college in Santa Fe, moved to New York for 7 years, went to Boston, got my master's in acting, was going to move to Los Angeles on August 28th, 2005.
Had it down to the T.
That day.
And on August 29th, 2005, we decided to move back home after Hurricane Katrina. So my wife and I moved back to Louisiana with no plans except just to be here. And fast forward 12 years later and have basically built a film studio with Susan Brennan called Second Line Stages, have continued to be active in the film industry, produced 2 films so far, one with yours truly, Jason Wagensbeck, The True Don Quixote, which just premiered at the New Orleans Film Festival.
Great film.
And we're crossing our fingers now. It's in the hands of our trusted sales agent in Los Angeles.
Fingers crossed.
It's more nerve-wracking than we thought, huh? And
But
so,
it was
yes,
fun.
and so and involved in film in more ways than I ever thought I would be down here, both as an actor, producer, studio operator, independent filmmaker, and now president of our trade association.
Awesome. Over here to my right, to your left, we have David Tatman. He is the CEO, president of Tatman Group, and also the executive director of LFEA. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. No problem. So for the people who don't know what LFEA is, Louisiana Film and Entertainment Association, can you kind of describe exactly who you guys are?
Sure, yes. The LFEA is an organization made up of industry partners, a wide variety of people who are interested in the Film and Entertainment Association across Louisiana. And our specific role is to bring people together and to create a platform for advocacy, to be able to go and to affect our policymakers at the legislative level, to impact things at the local level, working with films and local film offices, and doing everything that we can to promote film production in the state of Louisiana. The association really, as they go, is pretty new. We formed it in 2010. And it was kind of a little bit of a funny story. Sherry McConnell, who was at the time in the film office with the Department of Economic Development, came to my office and said, "We need a trade and professional association for film, and you do that. So let's set it up." And I think it was about 4 months later, we had our articles of incorporation in November of that year, and the rest is history. We've become quite a force in Louisiana with regard to our work in policy and promoting the industry.
Yep. You actually spoke of LED, economic development. Let's actually talk a little bit about that. I know that people in our industry, a lot of independent filmmakers coming up, are really trying to understand the landscape of what's out there through LFEA, LED, even Novak, just different associations, and that's the topic of conversation is today. So knowing that obviously you've been in politics quite a while, explain a little bit about LED and what they do.
Sure. It's the Louisiana Department of Economic Development. They work in a lot of arenas. They work in the chemical industry, in the manufacturing industry. They do a lot of incentive work to try to put government dollars in to perhaps subsidize or provide tax credits from any number of different arenas. There's enterprise zone tax credits. There are industrial tax exemption tax credits, which you're reading a lot about right now in Louisiana. And obviously, the motion picture investor tax credit is the most important one that they do. But, they're an agency of the executive branch. So the secretary of that department is an appointee of Governor John Bel Edwards, Secretary Don Pearson, and they work with us. We work very closely with them to try to ensure that the motion picture investor tax credit works for the industry. And we have a great relationship with them. Obviously, over the years, there's been some changes to the program, but we've worked very closely with them to incorporate changes that would spur production. And I guess a great example is just very recently, Trey, you and myself went to Los Angeles and along with the governor to promote the program and to talk about how invested our legislature and our governor is in this program and how Louisiana is the best place to film.
Yeah, and he came and did a press conference when he came back to talk about how great that trip was, and obviously we feel his full support, and Don Pearson, who's backed us quite a bit recently as well, too, through LED. So it's kind of nice to see those things really happening right now in this state, especially giving us a nice little 8-year window of a sunset to really kind of work and mold the program into what we've obviously all hope it will stay for the long term and be here. But, I mean, and briefly, let's just go over briefly some tax credits real quick, Trey, if you want to just kind of gloss over some of the things, and more towards the locals. A lot of people don't understand that, we have an additional incentive here for people that are actually are making content. You and I obviously took advantage of that in 2016, or the 2015 credit that changed again in 2017. You want to just take a little bit of that and maybe explain some of the incentives that we have here for locals?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to step back and go that this is a program that it's not just about bringing large-scale studio production to the state. That is the spending, and the spending activity that happens there fertilizes the ground and develops that ecosystem that allows every type of filmmaker, whether you're a studio or a college student or a young filmmaker or a documentarian or a writer, to thrive, because you have like-minded assets, individuals, infrastructure around you to help fulfill those needs that filmmakers need. So that being said, there is a basic film credit, which is 25%. And what that is basically whatever dollars you spend in this state making your film is eligible, with some exceptions, of a 25% tax credit. On top of that, if you hire, and this is extremely clear, and everyone gets this confused, we're the only incentive program in the film industry that incentivizes hiring Louisiana residents. The only one.
Well, the only incentive in the state, right? That incentivizes hiring?
No, in the country. Think about it.
In the country, okay.
In the country. Every other film investor tax credit program, whether it's Georgia or California or New Mexico or New York or Connecticut or North Carolina or whoever, we incentivize up to 15% of a Louisiana resident's labor. So it drives the folks that are hiring to hire local talent. And that's really critical. It's really critical, because what that does is that I think not only does it create high-paying job opportunities for Louisiana residents, but it also attracts people to move to our state. People that are on the fence. Hey, I want to work in this industry. I'm right out of college. Where should I go? Oh, you can go to Louisiana and probably work immediately. And the time that it would take you to, because our industry is a hierarchical thing. You can't just go in there and become a first AD.
Yep.
You can't just go in there and become a location manager. You basically start as a PA. But if you're smart and you're savvy and you work hard, in 2 to 3 years you can find yourself accelerating up the food chain pretty fast.
Absolutely.
So we have that extra 15%, which brings the credit up to about 40% off of your labor. In addition to that, one of the key things that we put in the legislature in the bill this past session was we really wanted to hone in on independent filmmakers. We wanted local filmmakers to feel like that they can have a slice of the pie too. And we've done that through the fact that if you have a local film, if you're a local producer, writer, director, your threshold to qualify for the program is $50,000 versus $300,000 for any other normal production. So that reduces the barrier to entry to participate in the program, number one. Number two is that we do have an additional incentive of 10% for a Louisiana screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it says if you write a screenplay and you shoot your film down here, you get an additional 10% off of the 25. So your credit is now 35%. And that's really important because it basically gives Louisiana filmmakers an added advantage, which, to induce them to actually make content here in the state of Louisiana.
And so with all of this said, it seems like we're under an umbrella of a great program. Would you say like Louisiana is like the place to come to make movies? Like your best option to break in this industry is in Louisiana?
I think Louisiana is one of the best places to do that, yes. I think it's a great place to come here and learn. It's a great place to come here and break into the industry. And it's not equal for every different department, right? I mean, I think we have to be clear. So if you're an actor and you want to come and fill your resume and get some good bits and parts in television or movies, you're more likely to do that here than if you're in Los Angeles or New York. It can be a great stepping stone. We have a lot of career actors down here that work and make their living as actors down in Louisiana. Now, are they auditioning for the number 2, number 3, number 4 on the call sheet? No, that's still very much relegated to the two coasts. And you have people that break through that ceiling every now and then.
We're seeing quite a few in New Orleans actually break through that and really having an opportunity to take over some of those roles.
Yeah, we are. And they look down here for that talent. They look to cast locally because not only do they want to diversify, the population in the television world. I mean, there's so much television. I mean, you can't keep up with it, but they want that extra incentive. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that the quality of life here is just bar none. I mean, I can say as a studio operator, I have seen on every show that we've had that come through, at least 2 people out of the crew buy a house in Louisiana or say, I'm moving here. Mm-hmm. I'm coming here to live because the quality of life, I don't want to drive 2 hours to my house. I want to get up. I can ride my bike to work if I want. It takes me 10 minutes to get to work. The cost of living is better down here. And there's a great environment. We have a creative culture down here and a creative community. And if you want to be enmeshed and have culture and music and arts and film and theater all around you, and not only in buildings but in the streets, then you come to New Orleans. You come to Louisiana.
Absolutely. And just to your point, as you were asking, a couple years ago, Baton Rouge was rated by Movie Maker magazine as the #1 place to be an independent filmmaker and to have an opportunity to make, obviously, tell your stories, if you will, and build yourself up, which is kind of great. Segueing into that, with the associations and obviously having you two here, me being the treasurer of LFEA, I want to dive a little bit into that as well. So the specific roles that LFEA does, let's kind of go through some of the things that we do. I mean, obviously, we bring a lot together. We bring a lot of these associations. We bring a lot of organizations and groups together. We rally, obviously, when the time is needed. Every 2 years, which we got another fiscal session coming up, with the chances that, our tax credits, in the past have gotten cut. Obviously, we feel good moving forward, but we always have to put on that fight and always have to educate the politicians. And so let's dive into that a little bit more. And David, let's talk a little bit about what LFEA does, not necessarily on the surface, but in the background and the things that we're doing to really kind of keep that engine moving.
Sure. I would submit to you that we have something up every year in the legislature.
You do, yeah.
I would also suggest to you that the legislature overwhelmingly supports this program. If you look at the votes, you'll have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 policymakers maybe make some noise. Mm-hmm. But when the votes come down, it is overwhelmingly supported by policymakers, both in the legislature from the regulatory standpoint and in the executive branch, which is really just a great thing for our industry. Mm-hmm. And it creates the sort of stability that we need to really be successful. We do not just lobby during the Louisiana legislative sessions. We are constantly 365 days a year out meeting with legislators, talking to them about what's going on in this industry, trying to connect them with local people who are working in this industry, trying to share with them the real numbers of the economic benefit that this program has to the state of Louisiana. Look, it's one of the biggest economies that we have in the state of Louisiana.
It's impressive.
It is, and so the talking points are always it's jobs, jobs, jobs. It's also good, clean jobs, right? High-paying jobs, jobs that draw young people and reverse the brain drain. These are all things that we're constantly talking to legislators about. Both of you have been involved heavily in the set visits. If you want a legislator or a policymaker to see what's going on in this industry, get them to a set. Let them see all of the people that are working, and let them see the diversity of the people that are working, from a caterer to a carpenter to everything in between, right? It's not just actors and directors. It's really just spreads out throughout the whole economy. And I might make a note that one of the things we're talking to legislators about now, we're adding to our talking points, is the fact that there's a 5% bump when you're outside of the New Orleans metro area. So we're trying to make it a more statewide program. We've always had decent impact in Shreveport and Baton Rouge. We're seeing a lot of growth in Lafayette, and I know Trey has worked really hard on getting that up and running. We're seeing it all over, though.
Which, by the way, brings your 35% as a local to 40%. So, case in point, for all the opportunities outside of the greater New Orleans area.
So what I would say to your listeners out there is reach out and talk to your legislators. If you need some help, talk to us. We'll give you what the talking points are, but they really do want to hear from you. And it's important to them that they know there are people in their district working in this industry. But I can't tell you how many times we've talked to a legislator and they said, I don't have anything going on in my district, and then we connected them to 19 people that work in the industry, that live in their district, that are constituents. We give them a list of productions that have happened within their geographic district, and so we're constantly working. And so we're talking to everyone. We're not talking to everyone the same. So if a legislator files a bill that we think is not good for the industry, we'll go have a conversation with them. We'll try to talk to them and bring facts and data, and we work hard on that. But our board, the board that you and Trey sit on, is phenomenal. They are constantly out there putting up resources and working to contact legislators, working with the governor, great conversations with his staff and the people, the Secretary of Economic Development, the Secretary of Revenue. I mean, top to bottom, our association is doing really well. And I'll tell you how well I think we're doing. When we were in L.A. and we were meeting with some of the studio heads, they knew who LFEA was. They knew it was a significant organization. And in two of the meetings, one of the sort of leaders of that individual studio talked about the fact that they wish they had an LFEA in every state. And so we're doing some good things here in Louisiana, I think, and due in large part to a really strong board.
Yeah, and attested to you and to obviously Trey for really kind of molding those relationships and continuing to communicate with them on a regular basis. I have to give you guys, tip my hat.
And I'd like to say, too, that when people look at LFEA, when you see the letters LFEA and you hear it and you hear from us, this organization is built on, it's for everybody. And we have an executive board that does a lot of the heavy lifting, but it's integral to the success of our organization that everybody participates in our efforts. We also, I want to bring a point up to the listeners that we were very much involved in a lot of the legislation that benefited local filmmakers. In fact, a lot of the ideas came from our brain trust when we did our fall, which is what we're doing now, our fall legislative, almost summit in some respects, so that we go through and figure out, what we needed to do. And a lot of it was driven towards local filmmakers and trying to open it up for everybody. So we were very instrumental in helping formulate those for local filmmakers. with the parts that had to do with education, parts that had to do with the screenplay, and all of those things. So we very much are not there just to support the big revolving production that comes in. We're there to basically create a really healthy ecosystem, but it takes everyone's participation. I think we have to make a very clear distinction that LFEA is not a funding mechanism for independent film. We're not out there to help sell your projects because we're actually trying to do that ourselves. But we're there to support you in that effort. We're there to ensure that you can live in your state, you can live in Louisiana and have everything there available to you to be successful. And a lot of that starts with the policy. And then after that, it goes into education, and it goes into trying to bring all these different groups together to speak in a unified voice. Obviously, what we're trying to do with education, Jason just had a roundtable with all of the educational leaders across the state to say, okay, what do we need to do so that we're on the same page, so that our young folks who are going into college right now in this state, when they graduate, they've got a place to go. They don't have to sit there and go, well, I guess I need to move to New York or move to Los Angeles. I can stay right here in my home state and start a career in this industry. And we're working hard to link all of those pieces together. Some people might just be looking to figure out, how do I become a grip? How do I become a location manager? How do I become a costume designer, and we're trying to make all of those links so that the people here on the ground, we can start really educating our workforce, because it's important, because we need to continue to grow those parts of the business.
Absolutely. I mean, in a way, I think of LFEA as a connector, and really we've got a board that varies from different people who do many different things on our board, from studio heads to companies that obviously support the industry. And so in that way, in connecting, I almost feel like LFEA, who needs to grow, can be eventually that launch pad. So you're right, we need as many members as we can, which, by the way, I'm going to point out, go to www.lfea.org and go take a look at what they've done. Take a look at the board. Take a look at everybody who's a part of that association, and go sign up. Go find a way to get that information, because we're trying to give that out to the public as much as we can, so that we can bring obviously a larger body and show a larger body of people as we move into the legislation coming up in April, I believe. April 2nd. It's on my calendar. I don't remember what it is. But anyway, the next fiscal session that's coming up. So I appreciate you pointing those things out.
Yeah, and we've also, this year, LFEA also sponsored 3 different awards at some of the local film festivals. We were trying to get more involved in supporting Louisiana filmmakers. We helped sponsor at the most recent New Orleans Film Festival the Louisiana screenplay competition. And so we think it's very important to highlight the local talent here on the ground, and we strive to do that. Right? And I love that analogy of being a connector. I think that's spot on about what we try to do. Now, we can't be an end-all be-all to everybody, like I said earlier, but what we're trying to do is become that resource for everybody.
Absolutely.
We have over 2,000 members across the state of Louisiana, and clearly this organization has done more for indigenous filmmaking, more for our indigenous economy than anyone else. You take, for example, the work that you all did in terms of the Filmmaker Grant Program that is now being funded, and it will take a little while for those dollars to build up, but that provides even more opportunity for independent filmmakers, for people to kind of get their start and then just create that indigenous economic impact that we really want to have with this program.
And so with all of these jobs and all of this opportunity, people are on the outside of the industry are wondering, well, what do we get? What does the state get from this? Like, there's, of course, tourism. There's, you're showcasing the state. So if you guys want to dive into that. Also, why is the film industry in Hollywood South so important for the state?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I look at, these are economic development programs, and I think the base of this is to diversify a state's economy, because I think in this day and age, when you look at all the competition you have amongst our other, contiguous states in this country, everyone is competing for business, for industry, to draw people down. I mean, I was on the way over, I was listening to WWL, and they were saying, wow, New Orleans or Louisiana is ranked 5th in this nation for millennials to want to move here. So and I don't think people move to a place. Nobody stays on a sinking ship. Everybody wants to be on the ship that's flying right. A ship fly. I just mixed a metaphor there. And I see there's something happening in this state. I mean, we have been a very resource-driven economy, and I think what economic development is doing is trying to diversify that. So right then and there, I feel like that these things are designed to create residents, to bring people, and jobs. That's what economic development is. And this industry not only has some of the top wages of any industry in this state, but we also it's been proven that, for every dollar that is spent, for every tax credit that's given out, we get $4.63 back in economic development. And that's real. Those are real impacts that happen to the state, to the local communities. And
people buy homes, people have doctor visits.
Yeah, they buy homes, they
groceries.
buy cars, they put their kids in school, they make donations. I mean, let's talk about just all of the some of the ancillary stuff that doesn't really get reported. One of our neighbors is the Kingsley House, which is one of the most successful social services not-for-profit in the state. And they not only do they benefit from renting out their property or renting out their office space or for parking. I mean, that is money. Those are dollars that they can now count on to go to help service some of the neediest children and adults in New Orleans. And so there's this all of this stuff helps create a more stronger dynamic place to live.
Ripple effect.
A ripple effect.
And I mean, if you take a look at the Lieutenant Governor's report that
Yes.
talks about the impact on tourism in the state of Louisiana, people coming to Louisiana just for the specific purpose of visiting a site where something was filmed, or someone was telling us they wanted to go to the bar that is in NCIS New Orleans, and you'd have to go on a soundstage to go to that bar. And so, but the number of people who actually ask about that, and then the development further of the film trail, to be able to go all across the state and do these sorts of things. But to Trey's point, there are a lot of economic incentive programs out there that we might not directly relate to, right? It may deal with timber in North Louisiana. It may deal with seafood on the coast, but yet it creates a stronger economy for our state, and it ripples out those $4.30-something cents for every 63 cents that are for every dollar that is spent really goes out there. Let me tell you one other thing, though. There was a poll 2 years ago done, and it was not of our industry. It was of the public about what they thought about the program. The program is wildly popular in the state of Louisiana. People love the film industry, and I think it has to do with the fact that they know someone who works in it. Their families may work in it. It brought someone back home from California or New York, and they just like the fact that it's not a knock on any other incentive programs, but it's clean. It's high paying, it's high tech, and it just really breeds a lot of different things. It breeds, programming type jobs and high tech type jobs. And so, that's what we're out there trying to tell legislators, and it works clearly. When we're out there talking to legislators about the impact this program has on the state of Louisiana and our economy, it is received very positively.
Yeah. It's not something that can become automated. People have to physically do the work. I mean, we have to create the costumes and create the art. And I mean, it's a creative industry that requires a lot of bodies to finish the project.
Yes, I've been saying that for so long. Thank you for bringing that up. It is not, you cannot replace human beings in this industry.
Nope.
Who's going to hump that cable across, that ditch? So it's physically, you need human beings. So you can't automate it. The other thing is that, and this goes to more of a national political slant, but we're keeping jobs in this country. Mm-hmm. And that's something you got to think about. We're keeping high-paying jobs not only within the boundaries of our country, but within the boundaries of Louisiana. So that's another big benefit I think you need to look at, too. I remember, to David's point, when we did that, we had to do a survey 2 years ago for the session. The House Ways and Means had everyone, they wanted testimony on why this industry was important to them, and we sent that out, and we got over 2,500 responses, and I went through every single one of them, and I segregated, about a third of them, and the opening lines were, I moved back home because, or I moved here because. And that just goes to the point of what ultimately I think economic development is driven to, creating, dynamic industries that attracts people to come and live in your state.
Didn't we take and print out all those letters?
We did.
And bring them to that committee?
We did.
And set them on the desk? And I
Yes.
feel like it
They're
was a
about
stack
that
that was
tall.
taller than Trey. Yeah, it sat in front of it.
Called it the Tower of Power.
And it wasn't a prop; it was real.
It was
It
real.
was real. It was
There's
real.
some vault somewhere in the Capitol, right?
Absolutely. And then when we made a call to action to obviously begin, or 2 sessions ago, to really get people motivated to really call their legislators last time, I think we had over 20,000 people responded socially, I believe, on some of our Rotary calls and everything. So I'd love to see those 20,000 people find a way to become a member of LFEA, so obviously they can get more involved and do their part as well. So, those are a lot of the things that are happening behind the scenes in LFEA, and I just feel like people need to understand that there is a lot of work that's happening. Trey's getting on the radio and on television and really trying to get our face out there and our brand of film. And I really think that's what LFEA is trying to do, is just push the brand of film and television here in this state. And they do a fantastic job of it. And I really hope people appreciate that and like I said, do their part and become a member with us, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, going into the end of the year, the fourth quarter, we'll be going out and just kind of touching all the corners of the state to make sure that people are engaged and that they're involved and that they understand. It's all about education and knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have the possibility of bills being up on April the 6th when the session starts. And I think we're well prepared for that. But one of the things I would share with your listeners is that there's big turnover in the legislature. The combination of term limits, the combination of the adversarial nature of politics these days, everyone's looking for a way out. You can see that by, I think there are 8 sitting legislators that are on the ballot tomorrow. And so there are a lot of things that are going on. And so it's really, really important that everyone be engaged and involved with their policymakers in communicating. An email, a phone call, show up at an event, shake their hand, say, I work in the film industry, and it's important to me in this state. And that's really where LFEA, I think, makes a big difference.
And don't we have on the LFEA.org, LFEA.org, don't we have a resource click that they can find who their legislator
absolutely.
is? Yeah,
absolutely. And further, if someone really wants to be connected with their legislator and they're a little apprehensive about it, call us, call me. Call anybody on the board, and we will help make that connection. We'll call that legislator and set up the meeting for you. We'll make it happen, and I promise you it will be a positive experience because they really do want to know you, and they do want to hear from you.
Yeah, because unfortunately, we go into these fiscal sessions and people don't quite understand, there aren't many things that you can pull off of the budget. And unfortunately, film or tax credits in general, and we always get pitted up against healthcare and education because those are the 3 big ones that the state legislator can pull their budget from whenever we're in a budget deficit. So it really comes down to a really short stack of things that you can really kind of figure out how this whole mess of this budget process works. And unfortunately, we're kind of in the limelight all the time. So, we're kind of getting pushed into that little corner from time to time. But you're right, there's so much positive out of it, and we're really moving in that direction. We're really educating, and we need to continue educating them because all the new people that go into that legislative body, I feel like when I walk in there, I don't recognize half of the people that we saw from the year before, and I have to go and say, hello, hi, where are you from? Let me talk to you about my industry a bit. Let's tell you what has happened in my backyard in St. Bernard Parish and all the great things that have happened here, and hopefully will find their way into their backyard.
Sure. For the last few years, it's been everything was on the chopping block. Everything, education, healthcare, everything. I think we have turned a corner in terms of funding our government for a while. Now the question becomes other people coming to get your dollars, right? So someone coming and wanting to expand a program, where do they get those dollars? There aren't a lot of extra dollars floating around. So we're going to have to be aware of that, and we're going to have to be prepared to be able to go and tell our story. But we have a great story in Louisiana with regard to film.
People love story. I mean, obviously we're in this industry to tell stories, but people resonate with that so much, and I really think that's a great thing and a big resource that we have in this state, obviously. So, well, guys, that was pretty fantastic. I think y'all have anything else you want to add to any of this? I mean, I feel like we've gone over so much. This was really great.
I just say if join the organization, be a part of your trade and professional association. There are a lot of people that are really working hard, like you, Jason, like you, Trey, and like our board members, and so many of our members across the state, the 2,000 people that are already members. Be a part of the solution. We need your voice. We need your input. We need to hear from you. And that's how you maintain a strong industry in the state of Louisiana, a strong economy, is that the people who care about it and understand it are involved. So we encourage you to join, tap into us as a resource, call me anytime, and we're there to help you. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, please go to the website and sign up, because we do disseminate information that's critical. One of the things that is really important when we go into any type of legislative session or anything that happens with on the political side, it can be really easy for a lot of misinformation to get out there.
Yes,
and you need, I think it's critical that everybody understands that LFEA has garnered the reputation of being the go-to resource and place for your information. If you want to get the real story, if you want to understand what's really happening, go to LFEA, sign up for our newsletter, email myself or David and get informed, because there's so many things that are put out there that might have different political agendas that might go against, or you might think it's a good thing or anything, but we've got our finger on the pulse. And so I think please use us and listen to us, because we try to keep everybody informed and do the best things, and we're open to suggestions all the time, with what we do. So,
and that information is going to start coming in soon, so go join now, because before we get into April, you're going to have a lot of stuff that's going to either hit the headlines or hit the social feeds. And so absolutely get involved as soon as you can.
Annual meetings, local meetings that we're having, things of that sort.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, part of our organization, we exist so that you can have the opportunity to go and pursue your career. And I know that what we do is maybe not of interest to a lot of people. I don't want to go talk to a legislator. I don't want to have to think about it. I just want to focus on my craft, my art, my family, whatever it is. Well, we understand that. So the way that you can participate, too, is also to financially help us as well. And we have many different ways to do that that I think are very achievable, from being an executive board member, which is mostly for a lot of the vendors and bigger corporations that are down here, to a corporate level, which is more of the small mom and pop business level, to the individual that can participate. I think it's really critical, because your support helps us fight for you, so you can go and maybe just show up and work 12 hours and make a good paycheck, or get your film funded and do those types of things.
It takes money to be the connector.
It does. It
takes money to find the
does.
data. It takes money to actually continue being, in front of legislative bodies and in front of, obviously, the studios, too. We try and put together a trip every year to actually get out there and make sure that they know who we are, what we're doing, and what Louisiana has to offer.
Right, and our executive board, we're all volunteers. A lot of us, we pay to be on that board, but so we're paying to go out there and spend our time and our energy and our resources and our relationships to fight for you, to give you the voice, to connect you to the educational opportunities, to the film opportunities, to all of those things. So it's a lot of time. Between Jason, and I and everyone on the executive board, we have spent countless, I'd say hundreds, thousands of volunteer hours to do this, and I'm not regretting any minute of it. But that's what we do. We're always on the watch. We're always making sure that we have our finger on the pulse.
Yeah, and creating those relationships too. I feel like, when people say they joined LFEA, they've had an opportunity to network so much more than they did before. Obviously, they're now part of an association that's fighting for them, but also introducing them to people in areas that they may want to join, become, as you said, a grip or a wardrobe, painter, art department. So go to lfea.org, go sign up, and make sure you join, donate money if you can, or become a board member if you can. So I think that's about it, though. I think we've covered just about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to give them their social handles?
Yeah. So you can follow these guys on Facebook. Trey, you can follow him at Second Line Stages, and then Mr. David at the Tatman Group. So thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate y'all coming in, guys.
Let's go make some movies.
Awesome show.
Absolutely.